2025 has been a year of movement in markets, in policy, in industries, and in the global economy. A year where African nations pushed forward bold reforms, where global powers reshaped trade, technology, and finance, and where markets reacted, recalibrated, and reawakened. Every week, on Arise Exchange, on the Global Business Report, and on Business Week, we sat across from policymakers, CEOs, economists, and analysts. We brought their insights to you, but now we flipped the script. Today, it's our turn, our voice, our lens, and our big business stories of 2025. Welcome to the Business Year, Anchor's Top Picks. I'm Rolake Akinkugbe-Filani, and with me are two of the biggest minds in African business journalism. I'm joined by Bosun Omofaye, host of Arise Exchange, and Rotus Odiri, host of Global Business Report. Welcome, gentlemen. So great to have you.
It's good to be here
on the show.
Thank you so much.
So let's get into it. So we start in West Africa with Ghana, one of the continent's most compelling comeback stories of 2025. After a period of severe stress, inflation, which had climbed above 50% at its peak, it eased sharply through the year and is now in single digits. The CD stabilized, debt restructuring moved forward, and a renewed focus on macro discipline helped restore investor confidence. So for many, Ghana has become a clear example of how difficult reforms can begin to deliver results. It's one of your top picks, Bosun. Why did you choose Ghana?
Exactly. Because when I look through in the run-up to the elections or the comeback of President Mahama for a second, and just like President Trump, he was the president before President Nana Akufo-Addo, and during the campaign, he was really speaking about how much more President Nana Akufo-Addo's administration could have done. He was really upset with the debt overhang in inflation in Ghana and the large size of the government and all of that. And as a business journalist, I was thinking it was just saber rattling. He was just looking for making political campaigns. And then he got into office, President Mahama, and we're just talking about the 12 months of President Mahama, and he has been able to deliver inflation to single digit. The cedi become one of the best currencies, not just in Africa, but around the world, and has been able to sit the creditors down to the table and have been able to secure deals that is beginning to give Ghana. It's not Uhuru yet, as far as Ghana is concerned. But as far as the macroeconomic fundamentals are concerned, he's able to spruce the various ministries and parastatals together and deliver a leaner government that will begin to deliver the goods to the people, to the Ghanaians.
And, you know, he's done this in such a short space of time. What was the one thing he changed, and why such rapid transformation?
I think it's all about commitment and the fact that while he was in office, he saw that a lot more could be done. The size of the government was bigger. There's a whole lot that the bureaucracy should be able to deliver. Now, this is gold shining all through 2023, 2024 to 2025. This is the country going crippled by huge bureaucracy and what have you, and inflation tearing at about 30, 40, 50%. Hello, Ghana is going to go down the drain. So he came to the office shooting all through all the cylinders.
He really was guns blazing.
And he has really delivered.
I mean, Rotus, what do you think, Ghana? Any thoughts on Ghana quickly before we move to next?
It's been a great turnaround. And, I mean, look at Ghana's stock markets, up by 77% so far.
One of the best performing ones in Africa. Interesting.
So it's been an incredible turnaround.
Very interesting. Yeah. And I know you also chose Ethiopia. Ethiopia is such a fascinating story because they've gone down this liberalization mode.
Look at Addis Ababa. The new.
Is it one of your favorite cities?
I think Addis is trying to take over from Kigali in terms of the aesthetics. In terms of, the first time I was in Ethiopia was during President Jonathan when we went for the World Economic Forum for Africa in 2012, and it was such a rustic city, as it were. But then they were beginning to dig around, lay some pipelines and whatever, and I said, well, maybe something is going to emerge. And Ethiopia has really proved to be the home of the African Union, and that Horn of Africa, an iconic city. Look at the images everywhere you see Ethiopia. But more important, the Prime Minister who was then in office, and I think I forgot his name now, died in office, and Prime Minister Abiy came in, and he started implementing 100 reforms that were in place more than a decade ago. So the reforms that you've seen in Ethiopia were not brought in place by the current prime minister. It was a playbook that had been set by former prime minister.
And which one of those reforms have stood out the most to you?
It is the financial market, for example.
The liberalization
of the financial markets, the currency, the exchange rate flotation. Today, the barrel is doing about 185 to the US dollar, for instance. They just did a $50 million today of weekly auction. They've opened up the banking sector to foreign and international investors. Standard Bank of South Africa is back in Ethiopia, got a relicensing. Then they're also working on a new calibration, Basel II and Basel III capital framework, which was announced yesterday, December the 15th, to have a new capital structure for all the banks in Ethiopia. They set up a new stock exchange, set up a new securities and exchange commission.
And then they've done the diaspora investment.
They've done the diaspora investment. But the biggest story for me was the Renaissance Dam. It shows how much Africa can leverage its own home and diaspora money to build a $8 billion dam. Incredible story how Ethiopians had faith in Prime Minister Abiy's administration, and that they were sending money home. And this money did not go into any private pockets.
It went into
that particular dam that will be delivering between 2,000 to 4,000 megawatts. And hold on a second, a few days ago, almost 6 countries around Ethiopia will be getting their power supply from that dam.
Incredible story. I really love the diaspora investment infrastructure. That model should be replicated across. But Zambia is also really fascinating. You picked it. And recently they actually got pulled out of junk status, right? Default, right?
Yes.
What stardust did they sprinkle there?
The G20 framework issue for Zambia was amazing. You know, it took 3 years or more to be able to get to the table, to get the creditors to the table. Zambia was becoming a basket case like Zimbabwe next door. All right, so they got the debt to deal with. So President Ichilema, of course, is a billionaire businessman. So what he did, one of the first things he did was to bring all the copper belt, the copper companies and all of you, bring everybody back, because nobody was ready to put a single dime in Zambia any longer for copper, and they were going elsewhere.
Right.
So he was able to bring them back to the table and restructure the holding company for all the royalties and assets of Zambia into that company and make sure that all that money goes to that company on the stock exchange. As at the month of November, that company was worth $1 billion US. Copperbelt itself, which is the biggest copper investor in Zambia, was $1.2 billion a listed company. So when you look at Lusaka Stock Exchange, the Zambia Stock Exchange, where Dangote has a cement and UBA has a very strong subsidiary. When you look at today, that stock exchange has about additional $3 billion this year alone, just because the president was deliberate in terms of restructuring the key assets that the country has, resources, reform the financial markets, and restructure deals with the creditors. So funds are flowing back into... And then it's doing massive infrastructure as well, from Ndola, where you have the Dangote cement, all the way to Lusaka and elsewhere. I traveled that road a few years ago when Dangote cement was open, and it was so bad. Now today it's turning into a highway.
Fantastic. I mean, Rochas, Zambia is another great turnaround story. Any thoughts there in terms of...
Well, I will say there is a theme. I mean, remember Zambia did default back in 2020. You had the same default issue with Ghana, Ethiopia. So with the three of them, there's been reforms, and they've all been able to unlock funding from the IMF, right? The restructuring with Ghana, Ethiopia locked about 11 billion or so, Zambia. So, you know, it's when there's money involved,
and when there's leadership, I mean, leadership and a lot of political will to push through this reform.
I think that is what is beginning to show, because when you look at the World Bank, IMF, the last meetings that Rotus covered, I think they were back in October, the meeting for the year, you can see the revisions coming through in terms of economic growth revisions upward for Africa. And what's working? Because they're seeing reforms working across Africa.
Absolutely.
Last year, 2 years ago, Africa was going down the drain in terms of the sentiments, globally speaking. But now things are turning around. Well, we've got commodity around that is good, gold, copper, platinum.
And we'll talk about the commodities.
I love commodities.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
so
move
leadership. We've got AfDB, Afrexim. It's been a big year because we've seen this transitions from these larger-than-life leaders at the helm of these multi-financial institutions. So tell us, why did you make these part of your top picks?
Look at how Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the immediate past president, was holding meetings with the Zimbabwe's political leaders and the creditors every 3 and 4 months. And I was following this almost every time. He said that Zimbabwe should no longer be looked at by international creditors and international partners from the days of Robert Mugabe. So they shouldn't be looking through the rearview mirror. They should be focusing on Zimbabwe as a forward-looking through the screen.
Right.
And he was a very strong ally of President Mnangagwa. Now, politically speaking, it's not as if Zimbabwe is a political El Dorado. But I tell you that Zimbabwe is making a very strong comeback. They've stuck with the Z currency. It's not Oasis
That's one
yet.
peg to gold reserves.
Peg to the gold. And they've had the fortune of investing in gold and turning around the energy sector as well to get more from there. They went through a massive drought. Oh, I forgot. Zambia went through the same thing. Almost all the hydropower stations were almost shut down. Zambia was doing about 23 hours a day power outage earlier this year. They've been able to turn that around. Zimbabwe, the same thing. Okay, so they've been able to walk through, but the Afreximbank and AfDB has been able to support them, and a few other agencies within those institutions.
I really love the AfDB Afreximbank story, Rotus, because obviously Benedict Orama, immediate past, right? Because we have a new president, Afrexim, has been able to really just focus on the infrastructure and trade piece. Any thoughts on that? Infrastructure
and trade piece, and also extending trade relations with other regions like the Caribbean, for example. And I do like the fact that, if I remember for Akinwumi Adesina, one memory that stands out for me was he talking in Nigeria, talking about the gap between male and female-led SMEs and how that gap had to be filled. So a lot of memories from the two of them with strong leadership. Indeed,
and let's hope George Alembe obviously continues in that trajectory and takes the institution to higher heights.
He's already doing that. I think a few days ago they laid the foundation for what will be the new international headquarters for Afreximbank in Cairo, and also what will be that international trade center. He's on that trajectory. You know, the legacy of leadership for these two institutions had been there for decades, and they're just continuing. I'm proud of them as a journalist, as iconic leaders in Africa, and the new two leaders are going in that same direction.
And your final pick in this segment was Trump and Africa 2.0. So explain that 2.0 bit to me. Does Trump actually have a defined African policy? Is there some economic diplomacy strategy there that we're not aware of?
I wish I know what is under his pillowcase and what he sleeps on. But I know that he sleeps well. But he's a leader who has a mind of his own, and just think that, look, I just want to do what you call the what's this principle? The contrarian political thinking, like Warren Buffett. Be greedy when others are fearful, be fearful when others are greedy. Right. And I think that's what Donald Trump is doing. Just turn everything on his head. I love the AGOA. I hope that he signs on.
They renewed it for 12 months.
Yeah, renewed for no. What the House of Reps are pushing for is 3 years. We hope we get 3 years. It was 25 years. If we get 3 years, that takes us past Trump's first 3 years, and then we can think of what happens next as far as AGOA is concerned. Trade and tariffs, 30% slap on South Africa. Oh my God!
And of course the G20 hula bully. We'll talk about it. But I saw you smiling there, Rotus. You have something to say on Trump and his African economic stance.
Tariffs don't help anyone, and I hope that AGOA is extended for much longer. I think the Biden administration was way more friendly to the African continent than Trump has been, and because trade is important, right? And so the more you're able to export to the U.S., which is a large market.
Why Biden was determined on the AGOA renewal?
Well, he should have right before he left. He should have knew that. So we just have to hope for the best with Africa and Trump.
Fantastic, great. Well, when we return, Rotus takes us into his top 5 from Nigeria's monetary reset to the global artificial intelligence arms race. Stay with us. Watching the business year 2025, staying on the theme of reform and recalibration across the continent, Nigeria's policy direction in 2025 also marked an important turning point. Aggressive monetary tightening, long-awaited FX reforms, and early signs of disinflation have begun to change the narrative, not overnight, but meaningfully, And for investors, it wasn't just about the numbers, it was about intent, credibility, and the sense perhaps that the policy direction was finally becoming clearer. So Rotus, are we out of the woods yet?
Well, not quite yet, but 2025 for Nigeria's economy has been a story of stability and a rebound. So second quarter GDP over 4%, fastest growth we had seen in about 3 years, followed up by the third quarter 3.9, bit of a slowdown. But currency stability has been the story of anything. I think the currency has a more impactful transmission effect than the monetary policy rate, which of course we saw a hawkish central bank trying to rein in inflation, taking things up to 27% and then holding at the most recent meeting. But if you look at, the profits of companies, publicly traded companies, the decision by PZ Cussons, for instance, who decided that they were not going to exit Africa after all and pointed to growth and rebound in Nigeria. Societe Generale, the director of emerging market strategy, pointing to the reforms in Nigeria. Market is up 43%. That's the NGX was up 50% at one point this year, saying that they're even seeing more upside for Nigeria in 2026. Taking, how foreign investors are seeing the macroeconomic, the metrics, where inflation is 8 months continuous deceleration.
Wow.
That's the story.
I mean, the pace at which you were going was like the pace at which the Nigerian economy was transforming, really. But it's actually really fascinating to see how the reforms have just taken root. Now, some people argue that we've kind of done the growth phase. The inclusion phase, where the trickle-down effects coming, is that what we should expect for 2026?
That's what we should, and that was what the World Bank, IMF, isn't it, Rotus? The second half-year report, which was in just October, was released, how to take the reform gains home.
Right.
And that's what the World Bank says. So it's time to move from that stability to growth stability to the momentum phase.
Right.
That momentum phase is that football, you're moving it all the way from the back and move from the way. Now you get to nearly 18, box 18, and you got to give that momentum to have the goal. Without that, you've not really done much. And that is where Nigeria is right now. Folks are looking at what's the next phase of reforms and policies and actions. You've stabilized. Now you've got to run. So just a little
and consolidate. And let's not forget we're entering the election cycle in 2026.
Right.
So that may wane, but hopefully there is political will.
Butterflies in my stomach.
Indeed. Now, Rotus, your second pick was what you termed the K-shaped U.S. economy. In my head, I'm thinking, are there two Americas? Can you please explain what you mean by the K-shaped U.S. economy?
So sentiment has been pretty low in terms of consumers, but that's soft data. The hard data, when you look at retail sales and spending in the United States, that's still being maintained. People are still making big ticket purchases. You look at, Black Friday purchases and holiday spending.
It's strong.
But it's strong, but the thing is, when you drill down a little further, it is being supported by the wealthier consumers. So for instance, this year, the wealthiest families in America added about $350 billion to total what's at 2.9 trillion. Now that's almost the GDP of the UK, right? I mean, this is pretty large. So essentially, that is where big ticket purchases are still making the wealthier the ones that are propping things up. But the whole watchword from Mamdani in New York, the mayor-elect, has been affordability, right? So there are people at the lower rung of the income street for the ladder, rather, for the U.S. economy. Those folks are still feeling the pinch. Inflation is still very sticky, and that's the story. But it is to America. So you think about the K, the one branch that goes up and the other one
going
so
up.
That's it. So that is essentially the story.
And I wonder whether consumers even got some relief from the rates coming down, because credit stress, would obviously be an issue. But we'll talk about rates later, because it's in our topics. Gold and silver.
Oh yeah.
I mean, gold has had a run this year. Rotus, those are one of your picks. Gold and silver, the devil's metal. Tell us about that trend.
I mean, gold started at about $2,600 an ounce to begin the year, and it's now about $4,003, right? So about something like a 62% appreciation. You've had the policy stop and start from the US with what happened with Liberation Day back in April, the big market tanking, the whole tariff situation. So investors were basically rushing to a safe haven. You also had central banks buying up gold, particularly India, to build pulled up there. It has helped Ghana immensely. Zimbabwe. Ghana's balance of payments is positive to the tune of almost 2 billion. FX reserves, I think 11.4. So that's been the story with gold. Silver, I mean, some folks consider silver to be the poor man's gold, right? There was some FOMO there, fear of missing out. So I think it's as if those that missed out on the rally of gold decided to pile into silver. But and silver is up, I think, about 100%. It's at $62, started about 30 or so to begin the year. But silver also has industrial use in terms of EVs, solar panels, electricity, and so on and so forth. So that's also the story.
Yeah, and in fact, Bosun, let's not forget that Africa mines many of these precious metals, right? So this is a boon for many of those big mining countries on the continent.
Zimbabwe is doing about, they're doing about 400, 500 tons as we speak right now. They've seen that they're introducing a new 10% royalty on gold mining for artisanal and big companies as well. Some folks it will ramp up smuggling, as it were, but it's good news so far for Zimbabwe. They've been able to use that to back the ZiG currency that's not able to stand now. Then they've extended. They say, look, we're going to bring forward this taking of the dollar off the table and putting ZiG as a fiat currency by the year 2030. So that's what the gold will do. Uganda, President Museveni is very strong. All gold should be refined, processed in the country, and stored in the vault in the country, not taken to Switzerland or anywhere. So everybody's keeping gold. The Ghanaian president, Mahama, is also riding on that.
The gold board, yes, in Ghana. Yes, that's another one. The Parliament passed that in March, so that makes, there's a committee that's set up, that is a board that is set up to buy from miners, an off-taker, basically.
Yes, and guaranteeing prices.
And again, government even wants some of the taxes being paid in hard gold.
Oh, that's interesting. But, you know, I've always wondered whether, you know, for those assets, those precious metals, whether they're in a bubble, but it seems like they've been rallying for years. But let's move on from one hard commodity to another one, oil. You know, the fearful thing, Rotus, you picked this, but I'm hearing from analysts across the board that we're going to face a supply glut next year. So oil prices are in very troubled waters next year. Tell us about what you're thinking on that.
The story has been your non-OPEC players, Brazil, the United States, Canada, adding to supply, right? To the point to where you had OPEC having to unwind the voluntary cut. So they added 138,000 barrels in April. May, June, July was 411,000. August and September, they hiked it up to 548 and I think 547,000. Then October, November, they brought it back down to 138. So they've added more barrels to the market. Saudi Arabia trying to protect its market share. There are some folks who have not adhered to the caps on production. So there's a lot going on. To Donald Trump, drill, baby, drill. He wants more, more
and then
oil.
Middle East, the moderation and the crisis, they're reducing risk, I guess, geopolitically. That's also weighing on prices.
Look at Iraq and how Iraq has stayed out of issues, right? Iran, I know, is having their own particular issues and so on. I know there's this whole Venezuela thing with the US, but you're correct. I mean, with oil now, to end the year, it's in the 60s, right? Where's Nigeria's budget at 75 or 25? So there's also the issue there, but that's been the story.
And you know, Bosun, oil anchors a lot of things. You look at it for the dollar, you look at it for inflation, you look at it for so many things. What are your thoughts heading into 2026?
I think the glut forecast by IEA should not be ignored. OPEC is the one in charge of the barrels of oil, so they're going to say, look, we're not pushing additional oil back into the market in the first quarter for next year, because they also have a fear at the back room that there could be a glut. So let us just keep one eye on what IEA is saying. So I think that's why they said the big 8 boys within the Saudi Arabia, Azerbaijan, and others said they're staying back. So oil play into next year will remain the same. Everyone is keeping more eyes on Trump than anyone else right now. In fact, there are more eyes on Trump than on Middle East.
Indeed. Lots of scenario planning there for countries who export and, of course, for companies. But tokenization and the future of markets. You like these big words. So tell us why this is a pick for you.
Tokenization is basically a digital representation of an asset. It's different from cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum that have nothing to back them. So you can tokenize your car, you can tokenize a stock, you can tokenize a bond. And what we saw this year in 2025 was that we went from theory to practical, where BlackRock, one of the biggest asset managers in the world, issued a money market fund that was tokenized. It's now 2.5 billion,
in fact, the value of the market is huge. Exceeded 35.7 billion.
Yeah, it's grown immensely. So they've actually, the BlackRock JP Morgan, all these big asset managers are actually going there and actually moving in. And in the future, you're seeing possible tokenization when it comes to IPOs and so on and so forth, what it could mean for the stock market, private markets versus public. It's really big.
So essentially, these assets should be part of an investment portfolio in 2026. That's what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much, gentlemen. This has been so interesting. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll continue the discussion on the business year 2025 Anchor's top picks with Reuters and Borsa discussing their final 5 picks each here on Arise News. Stay tuned. You're watching the Business Year Anchor's Top Picks. In 2025, we saw a surge in structural reforms across sub-Saharan Africa. Fiscal, monetary, institutional. Governments moved beyond just short-term firefighting towards deeper fiscal, monetary, and institutional reforms, signaling perhaps a renewed focus on stability, credibility, and long-term economic resilience. Boston, your number 6 pick is Africa's policy momentum. We've talked about some of the bigger countries, Ethiopia, Ghana, but are there some small bright lights in there from a policy momentum perspective that we should know about?
Senegal,
okay.
Senegal, for example. And the whole idea about reforming the oil and gas sector or the hydrocarbon industry. Then you talk about Guinea and the iron ore project, the Samandou project, and part of that takes you all the way to Mauritania, what you call the Western Sahara. That West African corridor, okay, the back of the head, if you look at the map of Africa. So you got that on one side. Then you get the Benin Republic. Again, you've seen a lot that Afreximbank and the AfDB has been able to support industrial what you call special economic zones for these countries. Benin Republic, for example, started exporting some of his homegrown clothing to France this year. That was very major, big news. So we've seen some policy stability across Africa. Togo, infrastructure in Benin Republic, for example. They spend billions of dollars reforming the seaports, making sure the logistics work. Okay, Nigeria's backyard. The same thing for Togo. You look at Cote d'Ivoire as well. One of the reasons why you find a little bit less of uproar against President Alassane Ouattara was because on the economic front, he's been able to manage.
And they're growing about 6 to 7% as well in Cote d'Ivoire. 6 to 7%.
Yeah. And AfDB has done very well for that country, been headquartered there. They've supported in terms of electricity, power, energy, transportation, agriculture. I've been to some of the northern corridor of Cote d'Ivoire, bordering Ghana, to see the farms there that's supported by the AfDB. When you move out of there, you go to the Horn of Africa. You've seen a bit of more cooperation happening between Ethiopia looking to work with Somalia on the financial markets and economy, despite the issue over the Renaissance Dam with Egypt and that in that corridor. Now, you've seen a few more handshake within that corridor in the Horn of Africa as far as policy is concerned. Then you move down a little bit. Tanzania, okay, well, it's important, but if you discount the recent political issues around President Samia Suluhu's re-election and what have you, Tanzania hasn't done really bad when it comes to... so it's also emerging in that...
It's interesting because with all these countries, the concern here is sort of stability and some of the political risks, the regional issues. Reuters, do you think any of that will derail some of the policy momentum that Bosa just highlighted?
I hope it does not.
Because even Benin Republic recently...
Exactly, with the old deal, because I hope it doesn't. I'm just really optimistic that they maintain this path because stability is how you bring normalcy to your economy and you get growth.
I agree with you.
Indeed. Your next pick in this segment was Africa's equity markets.
Okay.
What have been some of the big wins there in Africa's equity market?
Just trade. Just trade.
Okay.
And
break that down for us a bit.
When you talk about the equities market, Ghana's had a decent year. Lusaka's had a very decent year. Nigeria has done about 45.3% as of today. South Africa has seen a bit of delisting. Some big deals were happening there. MultiChoice Canal Plus. You've got some Discovery Insurance set up a new bank, is making some deals. You've got Safaricom today. The 20 billion shillings bond was listed today. You've got a couple of deals. A few days ago, we got a report that PZ Cussons has revised his plan to sell down East Africa, and they're going to stay back on the continent. Access Bank of Nigeria has been able to make some good moves into East Africa as far as the banking is concerned. Zenith Bank is looking to some of Nigeria is looking to some other African countries. You've seen a whole lot more of these deals and policy momentum moving investors into the market and winning investors back, and Nigeria is not an exception as well.
And indeed, we always talk about foreign portfolio flows into the Nigerian market. I mean, Africa's equity markets essentially signaling broader investor confidence across the continent. What do you make of that?
Kenya is one place where you see local investors moving in very strongly. Nigeria is one case, also where the local players are also, they want to do more. Pension funds across Africa are supporting some of this. They still have a chunk of their monies or funds in the equities market. But as we see more digitalization, technology, reforms, and all of that, you begin to see a whole lot more interest of Africans in the African markets.
Yeah, indeed.
And I think that's just part of what
and we saw the Nigerian exchange of obviously going into Ethiopia and doing lots of really good work and collaborating.
Yes, I've also been a shareholder.
Yes, and being a shareholder in the Ethiopian Stock Exchange. I mean, Rotus, any comments on Africa's equity markets?
Everybody watching should invest, buy stocks.
Of course, you're giving us investment advice as well. Buy.
Egypt as well. Egypt is a story there as well. 44%. They've also been highlighted as with their own reforms. So it's a story.
And a few other exchanges are coming up. Mauritania is setting up its own exchange next year. Somalia wants a second exchange. Okay. Zimbabwe has a dollar-only exchange. Well,
obviously, there's a liquidity and depth issue, but that can be a whole nother conversation. Let's come to another set of assets, fixed income, the bonds. There have been so many sovereign issuances in the last year. Senegal, Benin, all these countries, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, Nigeria recently. So tell us what we're seeing there in 2025.
I think pricing has been good. Support has been good in terms of the appetite by institutional investors abroad to pick up these bonds that we floated. I think the confidence is there that whichever way you slice it, Africa still has what it takes. We should be able to pay back. The discussions around debt restructuring and what have you, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Ghana, and others should continue and will continue. But the fact is that these folks know that we've got a lot under the soil, and that if we just manage it, and I love the move that we have to start doing a little more beneficiation, either from lithium to whatever in Africa. I love that from the African Union coming through to the front that we want to do more of this on our own continent, like Nigeria as well. You can't just export lithium. We want to produce EV batteries and a lot of other things.
Yeah.
So the confidence is there that Africa has the resources to be able to pay its way. So if we take the Eurobond, we should be able to pay on
Indeed.
that.
And of course, the ratings have also helped in terms of clarity. I know there's this whole debate about having an African credit rating institution to counter the narrative. But we've seen some revisions in the right direction lately, Rotus. Any quick comments on that?
South Africa from S&P and Fitch, same thing with Nigeria, and there have been stable outlooks. Again, the stability we talked about earlier has now fed into the more optimistic outlook from those rating agencies. And I should add that on the monetary policy side, with the US and the rate cuts, that of course should hopefully flow through to cost of borrowing coming down. And
we'll come to that. Big corporate deals, M&A, which is one of your picks. Which ones really stood out for you in 2025?
I love the recent one. I love the Vodafone and Safaricom.
Safaricom, that's a Kenya one. Yeah, the Kenyan government is trying to raise money, divest assets.
They got $1.6 billion.
Yeah,
I wish that's Nigeria.
Exactly. That is a conversation.
We should be thinking about monetizing some of those assets. Right?
Egypt did that, right? So they were selling, stakes in their state-owned
just 15%.
So that's not
by the way, they still got about 20 or 25% there in Safaricom. So they've got a whole lot of money under the table. Then they've got a lot of shareholdings in some of the biggest banks in Kenya, Equity Bank and then the rest of them. And these folks were just breaking it down. And I said, you mean the Kenyan government owns this much? It's one of the biggest banks and companies in
Indeed.
I love that.
Interestingly, in terms of big corporate deals, M&A consolidation, Nigeria's banking sector, could that be, I mean, we only have 3 months to when the CBN recapitalization deadlines. We're not going to see deals consummated, but is there any other big corporate deals we can expect or trends from an industry perspective?
Is the Ministry of Finance buying?
Yeah, well, hey, that is another insurance too. There's also that with that reform being put there, with a number of the insurance companies that need to see consolidation. So yeah, there's a lot to happen there, potentially. Anyway.
Love it. Power and hydro disruption. Africa's energy reckoning was your 10th pick.
Today the news came out. South Africa's just pre-qualified 7 of the world's biggest energy companies. Adani Power, for example. About 2 or 3 from China, and I think 1 or 2 from France.
Adani is Indian, I think. Or
yes, it is the Indian.
Yeah.
Yes. That's about $1 billion or so to rebuild the grid infrastructure in South Africa. And that's how bold South Africa is moving to say, hold on, how did we get into the mess of the Eskom crisis over a year or so that we have 200, 300 days of outages? It's unbelievable. So they want to reclaim the title of being the most advanced economy in Africa. But you can't do industrialization in the dark like Dr. Akume Additional would put it. So South Africa is making very big, bold moves. And I think Nigeria should do this. We should do the same thing.
Yeah.
If we have a pre-qualification bid for our second grid in Nigeria and we have $1 billion on the table from Adani and whatever, I'm going to pop champagne tonight. Someone has a bottle over there, bring it here, if that's Nigeria.
Yeah, so any other big power stories that we're really excited about?
Clearing our debts to the Gencos. They're going to grab 4 trillion debts. We have to pay that off. I mean, I know they're looking at issuing a bond, but it's important that you clear that backlog so that an Adani or an investor wants to come into the power sector knows that, okay, there's liquidity here, there's no issues, metering and so on. So there's a lot we've got to do. They're making those steps, but yes, it's encouraging.
While we're clearing that out, I think we could just open a second window for the types of Adani and Co. to come in. Yeah. The industry is so huge in Nigeria. So we could just look at our hydro source, our clean energy source, and then the traditional sources like gas and whatsoever, and then open a second window for these big ticket guys. Because they just did about $1 billion in Africa today, and I was just sitting in the newsroom and salivating. I said, I wish this is home here in Nigeria.
You know what I really love about the Nigeria debt clearance in the power sector? It's really about tapping into capital markets for infrastructure. And this is what the model we want to build out.
We had a 5-year. President Jonathan had a 5-year. That was what the 2013 was all about. Was it a 5 or 10 year that these companies will come to the market? Only 1 or 2 came to the market.
Yeah, indeed.
So we need to bring them to the market. And someone said the books are not looking good. I said, once they come, the market will prepare the books for them.
I love that.
Even if the valuation is $0 or 0 naira, it can go to 1,000.
Right.
Because there are assets in there. Yeah. There are assets in the power sector for the Gencos. They have big assets.
Yeah.
All we need is someone to come in with tell all the boys to behave themselves. I had them sorting the books. And then the market
I love it. Also, it must be mentioned the
Dangote refinery.
Yeah, the Dangote refinery. I mean, maybe we can take that. We can take that right at the end, because I will ask you as well what your overall top pick is. But Rotus, we're going to come to you very shortly and hear your final 5 picks. So we come to the final segment of our top picks with my anchors, Rotus Odiri and Bosono Mofai. Now, we want to look at Rotus. Your 6th pick was autonomous driving. We've had the likes of Waymo. Who else? Tesla. I think Tesla even has.
Right. Uber is in there as well.
It's really becoming an interesting and evolving space. What are some of the trends we're seeing, and why are you so excited about it?
Yeah, so Uber CEO is currently in Asia, or he was in Asia, trying to expand their autonomous drive. They're doing it in the Middle East, and of course in the United States. Waymo, as you've mentioned, spun out of Google. I actually got to see a Waymo while in Washington, D.C. when we were on assignment for the IMF World Bank spring meetings. It's part of the AI play. Basically, these cars being able to just move themselves, hopefully be a lot safer because of the multiple cameras they have and so on and so forth. Tesla is in that space. There was a viral video over the weekend of a fully autonomous car driving itself in Austin, Texas, so much so that Tesla's stock jumped 3.5% the next day. So it's part of the technology play. It's where things things are going, the outlook is that, look, this will reduce accidents, because of the, think about the human element. Of course, people are still a little shaky about it, but it's part of the artificial intelligence plan. It's just where everything's going. Rivian, also a California-based company, they're making their own chips now. They're using chips from NVIDIA. They're now going to produce their own chips for autonomous driving. So it's a space that continues to scale
Indeed,
up.
and it's just so much more than cars. It's about urban mobility, logistics, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Urban mobility, as part of what I'm seeing in Rwanda, for example, some of these folks building autonomous vehicles that could go into the skies and go into remote places and help. That's part of the future of mobility as well. Just as far as the autonomous cars are concerned, also some of those cars on James Bond. And I thought, you guys should, Elon Musk should give credit to James Bond.
Right,
to the MI6.
But it's interesting how these tech giants, in terms of
let's move it from there. Well, I think the British should have built the first set of autonomous vehicles from the James Bond movies, but they never did.
They never did.
I think Elon Musk just
let's leave that. But it's interesting you mentioned Rwanda. They are leapfrogging in so many incredible ways from a technology perspective. But let's talk about the streaming wars, Rotus, which was your 7th pick here. We've seen the Warner Bros, Paramount, Netflix saga. Yeah. It's been big. We've also seen, even in Africa, we've seen DSTV, Canal Plus. Yeah. So that whole space, film, entertainment, streaming, there's been some interesting evolution in terms of consolidation and M&A activity.
The evolution is that more people are picking streaming and staying home to have more entertainment, and that is having an impact. So your multi-choice, of course, I know there's the whole canal ownership thing, but basically, box set cable companies are seeing their margins eroded by folks choosing to go to these, to streaming services. In the West, of course, Hollywood, Warner Brothers, the merger with Discovery didn't really work out. So basically, Netflix, of course, the worry is that this streaming giant is going to swallow, you swallow up this assets from this, theatrical company, and theatrical visits could actually be threatened in the future. That's
because some people still enjoy the cinema experience. But what do you think the outcome will? Do you think Paramount will prevail because of the Trump angle and the Larry Ellis angle?
So the markets actually they prefer Paramount because they feel that they're not. Netflix is the giant here. So if you go based on how the stock prices have been moving, because Netflix has been edging downwards, Paramount and has been climbing. It looks like the markets want that, and Trump being Trump, he could put his finger on the scale. But just recently, there was the co-founders of Netflix, Ted Saranton and his partner, Greg Peters, put out a note to shareholders that they're confident that they're going to get it.
Okay, interesting.
So
there's a lot of money on the table. Yeah. $108 billion or so.
It is. It's a lot of money, but the antitrust machine may sort of waiting on here. So we'll see how that. You picked JP Morgan allowing cars as collateral. In my head, I'm thinking that is the most random pick ever. But clearly, you're seeing something we're not. What is it?
So look, I think I tied that to the K-shaped economy, and basically
this is in the US.
Europe actually.
And
this is Europe.
Well.
So antique vehicles, custom vehicles, they are basically allowing their wealthy clients to use them as collateral for loans, and it's basically just giving them more choice as far as their portfolios are concerned. And again, it just comes down to wealthy people just getting more choice, because somebody who is lower down the ladder is not going to be allowed to do that.
Because cars are
depreciating assets, right? So
absolutely.
Again, it's just part of that thing. The rich are just,
Speaking of the rich, M&A in global fashion and the luxury business, there have been some really interesting acquisitions over the years, right? With LVMH, right?
Yeah, so this year, Prada, $1.3 billion deal, got Versace, from Capri. Also, Kering, the parent of Gucci, has been selling off some of its assets. It sold about $4 billion of its beauty division to L'Oreal, and then it has some really prime real estate on Fifth Avenue, where a lot of shopping is going to be taking place. $690 million there. So there's going to be some balance sheet realignment for Kering, where it's trying to just focus more on some of its core offerings. But yeah, M&A in the beauty division. COVID has impacted it. The Chinese buy a lot of that, so there's been a bit of a downshift there in terms of sales. But they're trying to see a rebound, which is why I see things.
And you know, Bosun, when I think of this, I think about African designers. How can we really be part of that global value chain going forward? Nigeria has a very thriving fashion and beauty scene. We saw the month of culture, which was October, November, Lagos Fashion Week, and all these fashion shows. What should we be doing?
We need to make bold presence at the capitals, most important capitals of the world. We've tried to do a bit in the West with France and a few things. We need to go to Singapore. We need to go to other places where fashion capitals of the world. And those who are behind them also need to show themselves up more than. I think it's just a matter of, I just want to make this, it's going to happen, it's going to bring some money in, and we're just quiet. I think I want to see more of their personality come into play. I mean, those who are these owners of these designer labels and what have you, and really push themselves to the marketplace. Maybe if a few of them do some listings on exchanges and what have you.
And my tailor, if you tell me you're going to make a suit and deliver it on a particular day, deliver it, electricity, lights, and scale. They need to, that's another thing.
I was going to say, maybe we need to do some consolidation, some JV, some collaboration to be attractive for capital markets,
no, it will be attractive to investors. It will be attractive to anyone who wants to promote it. And then we can put some of these brands behind the international airlines, for example, and say, this is official. For the
good idea.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, you've got the Rwanda football being
visit Rwanda
tourism with the EPL.
Indeed.
And then you can put some of those things out there.
We definitely need to position and mine and export our cultural capital. Rochas, this is the last pick I sort of picked for you. Yeah. It's really about asset repricing and thinking about, from gold to tokenization. We talked about luxury cars being used as collateral. Yeah. So essentially, there's markets in 2025 will force to rethink value. What does this mean heading into 2026?
Markets are going deep. So as far as 2026 is concerned, I think it's the AI trade is a big part of the conversation, right, going in there. But there's been fears of a bubble, right, with all the capital expenditure that's been going into these data centers and so on. So there's going to be a lot of, I guess, caution. But asset managers, they are seeing, like I said, they're seeing upside for Nigeria. They're seeing upside for US markets. So there's still going to be a lot of value at play there for markets.
Indeed. And I guess we can just ask our business viewers at home, if you had to choose one story that defined 2026, what would it be? Think about it for a minute as I round up here with Rotas and Bosun. What would be that one top pick for the whole of 2025? And then I'll come to Rotas before we round up.
Good governance.
So good governance.
Good governance.
Right.
It's at the heart of everything. Whether it's the market, industries, ratings, whatever you're doing, once good governance come in, it's sort of resolve a lot of things for you. So for me, the top story for 2025 has to be good governance.
And of course, the policy reform momentum, all of that has been tied to the fact that if you have that governance working well, and in the interest of the people, I guess, you will see the results.
You will see the result.
Absolutely. Rotas, any thoughts on what his topic?
Good governance, solid, for sure. I mean, good governance is it's leadership at the top, right? And it flows through the rest of the arms of government. So for sure,
Indeed.
That is,
and your top pick of 2025?
Technology.
Technology. Specifically what? AI. How has it changed your life this year?
It's made me more productive. It has brought out creative aspects of my life I didn't think were there. And I think it's poised to just really take things over as we move forward. We've seen some really incredible stuff from the AI players.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, 2025 was a year of reform, resilience, and recalibration. You had our top picks for the first time by the incredible Arise business anchors, Bosun Omofaye and Rotas Odiri, and myself, Rolake Akinkugbe Filani. We brought you 3 voices this year really powerfully, and now you got to hear from us. This has been the Business Year Anchors Top Picks here on Arise News.